Hey, it's John T. Younger, and I'm back in the studio. I'm going to do a live feed of working on the mosaic here. The first thing I'm going to do is sort of zoom in, or go over here. I was working earlier, and there's a live feed of that. I did this area, and this, and in here, this little piece here. I did these three pieces after my phone battery died. But when I come back in, the first thing I do is sort of look at what happened last time and decide whether or not I need some editing, like if there's anything I'm not happy with. And in this case, I'm not wild about this little piece here because I really feel like this piece should continue up. And actually this entire section of white here is all pieces glued together and then cut as one. So getting that out as tight as it was kind of a nightmare. But I'm going to remove this piece, and I already took the towel nippers and broke these off. So I'll take those out. I'm going to put this back, get this right where I want it. Then I'm going to put some tape over it, cut the tape along the edge, darken that with a Sharpie so I can see it, and recut this area. One of the things that takes some time with these mosaics is every new piece you put down, every piece works in relation to the others. And so when you put new pieces down, sometimes the old pieces just no longer look right and have to be done over. So get in here. Okay, that's right where I want it. So now the nice thing is after I make these changes, it'll be a lot cleaner and tighter looking. And yeah, actually, it's darker though. You can second guess yourself to death. Maybe I do want to leave that. As I'm leaning over, I'm getting my face right up next to the drawing and going, okay, that's not really quite the same color. Maybe where I want to change it is change this piece. Yeah, I think that's what I want to do. All right, same process applies. Little cutting box, and here's the piece I'm going to edit. If you look really close, if the camera will even get that close, you really can't see it. This is four pieces that were glued together and cut as one. So I'm going to nip this one off. All right. Sometimes that shatters the piece next to it, and then you gotta do one more, and it's really a little bit of a drag. And I'm gonna get a razor blade and clean off the glue that's left. So I have learned that old glue will prevent new glue from bonding well. I'm going to put this piece where it goes. And I'll do the thing with the tape anyway, and then I'll add the new bits of stone and recut it. So let's see. Once this is done, we can get on to more exciting stuff. But another thing is that, I like to finish areas and then go so that these pieces are going to determine these pieces, even if I don't start right there. It's just kind of completing shapes and color areas. Make sure everybody is right where I want them. All right. There's the tape. had an optometry appointment for new glasses, but it got canceled thanks to the coronavirus. So when this is all over, I can go get new glasses. Meanwhile, I got to take them off and just get my head right in there. Here we go. All right. Oh. All right, I'm going to do that a second time. Usually I do want to cut the whole piece off and put it on new stone, but since it's going to be attached to that, I should have left it attached to that. Let's try that again. All right, where you go? There you go. All right, let's try that one more time. It's always nice to start a video with several mistakes. Pretty humanizing, right? All right. Come on. Behave. Not anybody listening, you don't have to behave. I'm talking to the tape. All right. So, a couple pieces of stone. So, let's see. Just going to position that there. This here. I need just a slightly bigger piece. Where is this? This is going there. It's a little darker, so this would work. Now the goal with doing it this way is then the lines, the andamento, it looks like it's all nice and clean. And I could have done each of those one at a time, but it would have taken so much longer and it would have less precision. This isn't as much, I guess it's not so much about this being faster as this is a lot more precise. Takes way longer to set it up, but then the cutting part goes pretty quickly. All right, which way are you going? You're going this way. There we go. Now all the grain is all the same, running that way in the stone. And it was a little darker on this end, so I'm just marking the edge of the tape with the Sharpie so I can see what I'm doing when I cut it. It's better to do the marking. That's what this little card here is for. I put the tape on there and do the marking so I don't get Sharpie on the stone because it won't come off. But that area is going to get cut away anyway. All right. And before I start up the saw, I want to check the water reservoir. I don't do that before every cut, but at least every few, and always for the first cut when I come back to the studio. This happens a lot. Little bits of stone fall down in that hole, and they stick up enough that you can't get your piece in there, but they can also get caught in the blade and go flying. So, don't want that. Rinse it off, dry my hands, dry the stone. I don't want to get the drawing wet, and I don't want dust sticking to the water and getting in there so that it messes with the grout later. So let's see how our new fit looks. That will work. Take the camera out and bring it. So there's the piece we cut, and I made it so it came up a little bit here. It's supposed to be sticking out a little bit here, and now we're going to work on this stuff, which I want the tile to kind of come in a circle like this, but I'm going to try and cut it in segments like I just did. We'll see. This area of the mosaic, this and the skull, are the two parts I've been looking at since I started at 4. Oh shit, that's not what I wanted. I don't know how I'm going to get that. This is not going to be the most labor efficient way to do things, but hopefully it will look really, really cool and perfect when I get it done. We'll see. tried once. I did it. I showed this in the last video, but in this segment here, this little section, this chunk, this 4 pieces is all one. This is all one. This is all one. This is. And so I brought the lines around in a circle. That's basically the same thing I want to do over here. And I can shape the edges of each color so that they're really nice and precise. The other question here, is this shading dark enough to be the orange onyx? I kind of lean towards the yellow. That looks right to me, which means that this lighter shading will be the black and white striped limestone. Ideally, when I'm doing shading, if I have at least 3 colors, like a highlight, a mid-tone, and a dark, I can get pretty precise. And then, because stone is a natural material, any stone you buy is going to have some variation. And so those 3 tones can be more like, 6 or 9, if you're picky about which little piece of stone to use. Alright, so first I'll mark where it's going to meet the existing stone. I'm going to pull that away to give myself room to get in there and draw. I'm going to do smaller sections than I need to and more of them, so that should make the curves gentler. So putting that there, making a mark. It works better if you cut the stone away from the tape so that little bits of dust don't get on the tape and make it hard to stick things together. was saying, two pieces of the same lot of stone, but it's lighter on this side, darker on this side. This is a little lighter down here, a little darker down there, so I'll use that to my advantage. So I get the first piece on there. When I cut these on the wet saw, there's often a little bit of a ridge at the bottom where the blade ends. That's only on the finish of the cut, so I'm going to go over to the other end. And this is annoying a little bit. It's the drawing's just a hair wider than the stone. Again, so you'll see in the next step what I'm trying to do is make the lines between these pieces that are laminated match up as they meet each other. So let me see. Some dust on here already. And often on these ones where it's just going to be like 3 pieces, the smartest play, if you're not matching something that's already set down, is to kind of put one in the middle and one on each edge. There we go. Why are you not meeting up? It's your complaint. You have no valid complaints down. So now I'll glue them and then I'll cut them. And we'll do the next section. I kind of wish I'd been live streaming when I did that area, because it was the first time I tried that technique. And I was nervous about it, so I didn't want to do it live. So I didn't know if it was going to work or not. And it worked flawlessly. This one seems to be giving me just a hair more headache, of course. Probably because I'm used to giving the stone like more than 100% of my attention when I'm talking. That takes my attention off the work a little bit. That's kind of fun. It's fun to show people how this happens. All right, so here's the piece. And the most important part. These saws, band saws, are not known for doing good, perfectly straight lines. So I'm going to cut the straight line where it's going to meet the next piece on a different saw. But the other saw starts cutting at the bottom of the stone. It's hard to see exactly where you are. So I like to make a little notch with this saw and then take it over to the other. the other saws come and scrap some stone that I was. This is a bad habit. I set stone down on the nearest available surface, which is usually one of the other lapidary tools, and then I have to get it out of my way. All right. See if you can see. It's a little hard to see with this saw because the splash guard is in the way. But there's the cut I made. It's really not the cut I wanted, is it? Yeah, it is, because I changed it. All right. One thing is you draw something, you draw that, and then you go, wait, I need more of an angle, and then you have to go, which one did I want? Try to draw a little arrow to line it up, because it's easy to forget in the time it takes to get across the room. All right, so. See the stone vibrating. It's where I glued them. They're not perfectly even, so I'm going to go fix that before I finish this up. We'll probably see that tool later, but that was the flat lap, and it's just a flat grinding wheel that smoothed the bottom. I'm trying to get rid of all the little flakes of stone that can mess up a cut too. For now is a scrap with a straight edge. Here we go. When you're cutting this close to the edge, it's really hard to just not pulverize it, but if you hold another piece of stone up to it, it works better. It sort of keeps the vibrations from just trashing the stone. The hole that the blade went through is not quite so big because so much falls down through it. The saw's not really meant to be doing such fine detail work. Okay, I've got a little bit of a curve here, and here there was a bit where it didn't cut. So we're going to fix that with the glass grinder. Or I like to call it a spindle grinder, since it can grind a lot of things that aren't glass. And it's kind of a cylinder. So you notice, just to make that one piece, I used 2 saws and 2 different grinders. They each had their own place. The flat lap was the first machine I bought, and that was all I had. You can grind things flat. You can grind them at an angle to make, triangles or curves. Then I got this guy, and the bandsaw, then the flat saw, or the cutoff saw, the one that's sort of like a table saw, is brand new, and I bought it just to do what we're doing today. Just exactly for this specific part of the mosaic. I'll use it in the same way when I do the skull also, so I mean, it's not like a one-trick pony. Alright, so there we go. So, quite nicely. Now we'll draw the next section. And beginning to think, even though we've only done one piece, beginning to think maybe this is actually going to work the way I hoped it would. I do not like to make assumptions about that. You just try stuff and it works, or it doesn't. If it does, yay. If not, try something else. I made a little mark there so I would know what area I need to cover. And right over the table I've got like it's a 13,000 lumen LED, which is great because I can totally see what I'm doing, but is sometimes not as great because there's a lot of glare. Alright, so I can only draw clean lines going certain ways, so I'm sure people who do more drawing than I do can draw wherever they're standing. I kind of have to go to where I find it comfortable. Of course, now I can't really see exactly where the edge of this is. So I'm drawing on the edge of the completed stone so that I know where that is when I'm lining things up. And also when I pull the tape up, I can put it over the existing stone and I can figure out exactly where it'll best line up the next bunch of stone. Okay, I'm doing that thing again where I'm making different lines because I'm changing my mind. So this time I'll make a little arrow that points to it. All right. And I'll pick up this piece. Pull up the tape. And here I'm gonna align the tape up. There we go. All right, so now that I've done this, I can take this little card and I can kind of do some straight edge stuff so that I know exactly where I want to place the stone bits. Okay, actually, instead of that, everybody's names are over the picture, so I can't see this guy. I guess not. Okay, well, I guess you can see. So the easiest way to make sure this is right is to take the actual stone I'm using and match it up. All right, now I know that the centerpiece is going to go there. Kind of see. Okay, how big does the centerpiece need to be? I don't have a ghost that flickering is a defective work lamp that just goes on and off whenever it feels like it, which is quite irritating. Okay, so now I know the centerpiece is going to match up with the one next to it, and I can put the other pieces, and they are also going to match now. I hate to waste things. It's better to have your pieces a little too long. The smaller something is, the harder it is to cut it on the bandsaw, because there's just not enough to grab onto and it falls in the hole and stuff. So sometimes it's good to just even use a much bigger piece than you need, because it'll get cut away and you can reuse it later. But you need something to use as a handle when you're cutting. There we go, that looks good. Oh, or does it? Well, we'll find out. I wonder. Those do all match up. I'm worried about the next one, but we'll just see when we get there, I guess. Maybe it will be fine. All right, so glue it. fact, speaking of cutting little pieces, the way that I came up with the whole lamination idea was trying to cut something really tiny. I think it was like probably a toenail for one of these. It was just, it was like, not even this big. It was tiny. And I realized that if I cut into the toe and made room for it, and then made a bigger piece that fit in there, and then cut it around, so that was a lot easier than cutting the piece I needed. Like, shape the part of it that fits inside the other part, and then cut away what I don't need. And then, like a year or two later, I realized I could do this. Sometimes one idea has a lot of permutations, but it takes a while to notice it. All right, get my dust off here. Crumbs. And okay, there's my. So again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make a notch to use the cutoff saw. Use the cutoff saw. Over here. There we go. Get this thing to stand up so I can see. I hate how much that little water thing falls down. I think I'll probably end up super gluing it eventually. Now, this curve is so close. What we'll do is we'll do this first on the saw. But I think rather than trying to cut these two edges on the saw, we'll do one of them on the flat lap and one on the other on the glass grinder. Okay, and there I almost made a mistake because this looks curved to me because I just kind of drew it at random without a ruler. But because we want this to meet another piece, this too should be cut on the curved saw. So easy to lose track of things. All right. And one thing about both of the grinders is they they're not good at removing tape compared to stone. They'll remove the stone under the tape, but not the tape, and so you kind of can't see what they're doing. So I'm going to cut away the tape where I want to grind it so that I can actually see that they're doing what I want. All right. So yeah, this is the exact difference between the flat lap and the glass grinder. This inside curve, you couldn't do that on the flat lap, but you can on this. So. All right, there we go. And you could do an outside curve on this, but it's not the easiest thing in the world. You can do it on this one. There we go. Oh, where did our other piece go? Here it is. You know, actually, one thing I'm going to do right now is take a little bit of tape. Because I don't adhere anything to the drawing until I'm all done, and then I adhere the whole thing. A lot of times it's useful to tape something so it can't move. But otherwise, if this piece gets nudged back and forth, it throws off every other piece in the series as we go. Okay, so I don't know if you can see it on camera, but this needs to have a little more taken off. I'll just go do that. There, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, now I've taped these together so they can be moved as one. So I can get them out of the way for each next section. I think this is working, but honestly, a lot of the time you can't tell until you're done. Sometimes you can't tell until the area around it is done. First time I did a rib cage, I was convinced that it was completely wrong the entire time I was working on it until I put the last piece, and I was like, wow, that's awesome. But it just didn't look right until it all went together. Kind of nerve-wracking. But then, like, after a while, you kind of realize it is what it is. You come to expect it. And, you know, also one one part can look right and the other part can be just a little bit off. I was just moving that because the very top of it didn't meet the top of that, but now it does. So give that a little piece of tape too. Finding and removing all these bits of tape before you throw it is a nightmare. You think you've got them all, you don't. I'm marking the inner and outer edge again like I did last time. Now I'm going to flip that up so I can do my drawing. Side again to look at the other side. And this time, so that I don't accidentally use the wrong saw, I'll use a straight edge instead of hand drawing. You can do yourself favors, right? And even though I just taped him off, I need to bring him over here so that I can put the tape on. There we go. And support the other edge. There you go, I've marked where the centerpiece is going to go. And how long do I want it? I want it to be this one stone. Be right back. different, oh, come on, tell me I didn't do that. Too small. Yeah, there we go. Just barely. You know, if there was just like the weeest bit too small, and although I'd rather keep these pieces consistent in width, and I could, you know, glue another piece and just cut that wee little piece from it and have done, really sort of works better to go ahead and just get a slightly wider piece. Top edge was also just a little. There we go. All right, so I'm fudging it just a smidgen, just a wee little bit. I don't know, I might have to actually. That'll work. And if not, you know, do-overs. I don't love. Alright, so here we go. This is what we're going to cut. So this time, to be a little more efficient, I'll make notches for both of the pieces that I'm going to cut on the table saw. There. Maybe now the splash. One nice thing about having all these different sized bits of stone is you can wedge things together when you need to. Just a couple little crumbs of stone here that we're going to prevent me from actually making this cut. It would have blocked the stone from moving. So tiny and yet. I'm stopping the saw because these two little bits came loose and I didn't want them to jam and cause problems. So back up. And you know, sometimes with saws, table type saws like this, you'd have a stick or something, you push it. I need a level of accuracy where my fingers have to be right next to that blade. It's pretty safe because I can see what I'm doing. I've got just a little off here, just a wee bit too extra, so I'm going to fix it on that. I'm going to do the top curve on that. We'll do that on the bandsaw. Doing a little trimming with the bandsaw blade, like it was a, you know, reciprocating diamond file or something. Really good way to break or bend your blade. Not recommended, but sometimes the best way to get what you want. One of those, you know, do what I say, not what I do, or whatever. I have a lot of bad habits. I can zoom, alright, except you still can't really see. I'll zoom back out. It's lining up really well. It's just a little bit off here. I think I'm going to work with it for the moment. Be right back. I'm going to take a little bit off there. There we go. That's a much better match now. The thing that's going to go right here is the white and black striated limestone. It's got little stripes in it. I guess the camera's not going to show you that yet. But like here and here. And since this is happening first, I've got wiggle room there. it's okay if, you know, it's a little different than I intended as long as it's close. Where it's not okay is if it's meeting other existing stone, then they're gonna, you know, meet up. But whoever's the first color in the area has more leeway. I'm not going to say it doesn't have to be perfect, because, like, as far as I'm concerned, it totally does have to be perfect. But how that ultimately gets expressed is another matter. Okay, so just talking to myself, figuring out the best way might actually work. Trying to figure out whether I can make the piece bigger or if it has to be a bunch of small pieces. I think I can do this and then do that last section all in one. Oh, I guess this is where I need to, so put these back. Ah, see, it's good that I did that. Because this piece needs to get rounded down just a little bit to work with that other pre-existing piece. So what I just did is I drew this inside line, which is where that fits. I'm showing you this is really the piece that's wrong, because that's well within the yellow. So I think what I'm going to do, this one here, so it fits fine. But I'm going to do the yellow the way, leave that yellow the way it was, do the other yellow the way I want, and then edit that gray piece. It's not quite right. That definitely should be yellow. So, okay. Take the piece, overlap the drawing on it. Support by tape. And here, because this gets wider, we're not going to be able to make it out of 3 pieces of stone. So I'm going to mark the middle one. But knowing that we're going to have to add some. You know, the temptation when you're doing these pieces laminated together to cut is going to be to start from the edge of your drawing. But actually, if you start sort of in the middle, that works better, because this is going to be a whole piece. This is going to get cut skinnier, so you might as well let that be the second piece you make. It's more important to focus on the complete pieces meeting up. I was using a slightly lighter piece here to gradate into where it's going to be white and gray, but since this is all yellow and stuff, I'm going to go ahead and go darker. Because it's not going to be blending so much. This is the piece that I'm really not sure is going to work, because then when I get down to this bottom, I don't know how well it'll line up. We'll just have to see. Might be fine, might not. Okay, and here I've got just a little bit extra, but because I want things to meet up well over on this edge, I'm just going to make that, you know, a little piece of this. So we'll glue these puppies up. I know this is kind of just the same thing over and over, but hey, mosaics pretty much are putting one piece down and then another piece down. I mean, it's the same thing over and over for sure. There are little intricacies to how you cut things, and you know, tricks to how to measure things. I mean, there are all kinds of cool tricks, but mostly it's going to be kind of repetitive. I do actually have I have to paint the other mosaic bay, or, you know, Marcy doesn't like it when I call rooms in the house bays. She's like, it's a dining room, it's a living room. Well, not right now. Anyway, I have to paint that, so if the mosaic gets too exciting, I can show you paint drying. It's just that since I do think the mosaic is more exciting, as much as I do need to get the painting done, I keep doing this instead. Honestly, I hate painting houses. If I never had to do that again, I would be totally cool with it. It looks like I'm down to 10% of battery, so we may not be able to finish this whole section. Maybe it is time for a new phone. Okay, so same thing as before. I'm going to make the starter cuts, and we'll use the round saw. If you're wondering why I was spinning it to make those starter cuts, just because it's easier to do it if I'm closer to the edge so I can see it. There's those two cuts. I'm going to edit them a little. This one's just a little too big, so I'm going to edit that and this outer curve on the flat. The flat lap's a little better at removing tape than the glass grinder, but you still have to kind of work at it. All right. Let's see if it fits. Should. I hope that didn't make anyone dizzy. All right, here I'll zoom in, and then I'm going to go ahead and shut down for a while since I've got no battery and no charger in this room. But you can see how the four pieces kind of go around in a circle, and then I'll do that last section, kind of tie it into here, fix that area of gray, and then fill in that center. So I am reasonably happy with how this is working out, and probably we'll finish that whole iliac section of the pelvis tonight. Then it's up the spine, and then yay, the ribs. I can't wait for the ribs. I'm leaving this section of the arm until the ribs are done because I'm going to have to keep leaning over it. Whereas that one I could lock in. And then the skull, I mean, this is getting close to done, actually. It must be at least halfway done. The ribs are going to be sort of labor intensive, I bet. The spine is no fun at all. The skull's going to be tricky. Anyway, there we go. Thanks for hanging out, guys. That's looking pretty 3D. We'll see when I get it all with the background done. All right, thanks, guys. Bye.